They say around 3:15 this morning, Salt Lake Fire got calls of an explosion at the Chevron gas station convenience store, also home to a Subway and Chinese Hawaiian grill here on Redwood and North Temple.
Yeah, we about 80% of my customers are Canadian customers. We call locals White Rock, South Surrey customers are locals, and it's just it's kind of a rough deal on these border towns when things like this happen. 9/11 was terrible, COVID was terrible, and we get hit a lot harder than most towns.
We just see some lady come out with a baby saying, "We need help." This lady just gave birth.
Alex Asensio had just started his shift when a homeless woman came in and gave birth inside the Chevron's bathroom.
You might think Chevron is just a regular place to fuel up and move on, but what if that quick stop was part of something much bigger and much darker than you realized? For decades, Chevron has built its reputation on convenience, power, and clean branding, but behind that shine are stories of pollution, lawsuits, broken communities, and global controversy that rarely make the headlines. Customers have been overcharged, workers have been silenced, and entire towns have been left to deal with the consequences. This is not just about gas, it is about the cost of ignoring the truth. In the next few minutes, we are going to uncover the 10 things Chevron never wants you to hear. Watch closely because this is the kind of story that big companies hope you scroll past. And once you see the full picture, you may never pump gas the same way again. For years, Chevron has faced growing complaints that their gas prices are higher than they should be. And some customers believe it is not just inflation or local taxes, it is something deeper. In places like California, Chevron's prices often rank among the most expensive, even when nearby stations sell fuel for significantly less. This has led to accusations that Chevron is overcharging customers through unfair pricing practices. In fact, several investigations have looked into whether oil companies like Chevron have manipulated fuel prices by limiting supply to drive up costs. One such case saw lawmakers demand answers after sudden price spikes happened without any clear reason. They wanted to know why Chevron's prices rose faster and stayed higher than their competitors, especially when the cost of crude oil remained steady. Critics say Chevron and other big oil firms work behind the scenes to control market supply and keep prices high, especially in regions where they dominate the market and competition is limited. Some experts also point to Chevron's refinery operations, claiming that temporary shutdowns or maintenance delays are sometimes used to justify price hikes. For everyday drivers, this means paying more at the pump without understanding why. Many feel they have no choice but to accept it, since Chevron stations are often in prime locations where alternatives are limited. The frustration is real, especially for people who commute daily or have to drive long distances for work or school. When fuel is already a major expense, even a small increase in price adds up fast. And when customers begin to feel like those prices are being manipulated rather than based on real market conditions, it creates distrust. Chevron denies any wrongdoing and says its prices reflect market forces, but with more scrutiny on corporate practices and rising anger over inflation, drivers are starting to ask tougher questions and demand real transparency. Chevron has been at the center of some of the biggest environmental lawsuits in recent history, and many of them are not just about accidents. They are about what the company did or did not do afterward. One of the most shocking cases involved a massive oil spill in the Amazon rainforest, where Chevron was accused of dumping billions of gallons of toxic waste into rivers and soil, poisoning water supplies and making entire villages sick. After years of legal battles, an Ecuadorian court ordered Chevron to pay billions in damages, but the company refused, claiming the trial was unfair and politically motivated. Instead of paying, Chevron launched a global legal campaign to avoid the judgment and even went after the lawyers and activists involved. This left many people wondering how a company could cause so much damage and face so few consequences. The United States, Chevron has also faced environmental lawsuits, including a case in Louisiana where it was ordered to pay over $700 million for damaging wetlands. And when accidents happen, like refinery fires or pipeline leaks, critics say Chevron often tries to minimize the fallout and avoid full responsibility. Communities affected by these events say they were not told the full truth, and cleanup efforts were slow or incomplete. Some claim Chevron tried to cover up the extent of the damage by delaying reports or keeping information hidden. These patterns have made environmental groups and local residents deeply distrustful of the company. While Chevron says it follows strict safety and environmental standards, the repeated lawsuits and fines tell another story. For people living near Chevron operations, it feels like their health and environment are being sacrificed for profit, and that Chevron would rather fight in court than take real accountability. Chevron is one of the biggest oil companies in the world, and with that power comes responsibility. But some of its international operations have raised serious questions about human rights. In places like Myanmar, Chevron has been accused of working with governments that have a long history of abusing their people. Reports from human rights organizations claim that Chevron's projects in the region helped fund military groups responsible for violent crackdowns, forced labor, and even attacks on civilians. Even though Chevron did not directly carry out these actions, critics say the company still played a role by continuing to do business and staying silent while these things happened. Chevron made profits while people living near their pipelines and drilling sites were being mistreated, displaced, or harmed. These reports have led to public outcry and international pressure for Chevron to explain its role and take accountability. In some cases, families and victims have taken legal action, saying the company should have known what was happening and done more to stop it. Human rights experts argue that companies cannot claim to be neutral when they are operating in countries where abuse is part of the system. Even in other parts of the world, including parts of Africa and Latin America, Chevron has faced accusations of ignoring the rights of local communities in order to keep operations running smoothly. Critics say the company is more focused on protecting oil profits than protecting people. While Chevron denies involvement and insists it follows ethical standards, the pattern of silence and inaction in the face of abuse has become a serious stain on its global reputation. And for many watching from the outside, it raises a disturbing question. Is convenience and profit more important than basic human dignity? All across the United States, especially in places like California and Texas, Chevron owns and operates massive oil refineries that keep their business going. But for the people who live next to these facilities, the cost is not just about rising gas prices. It is about air that burns their lungs, strange smells that linger in the neighborhood, and health problems that keep getting worse. In Richmond, California, where one of Chevron's largest refineries is located, local residents have spoken out for years about asthma, respiratory issues, and even cancer that they believe is linked to the pollution coming from Chevron's plant. They say the company releases toxic chemicals into the air and water, and that when accidents happen, they are the ones who suffer the most. One of the worst events took place in 2012, when a massive fire at the refinery sent a huge cloud of smoke into the sky and forced thousands of people to seek medical help. Chevron was fined millions of dollars for the incident, but many community members say the damage to their health and trust was far worse than anything money could fix. Over the years, environmental groups and local activists have continued to pressure Chevron to reduce its emissions and invest in cleaner, safer technology. They have organized protests, spoken at city meetings, and pushed for stricter regulations. In response, Chevron has promised to make improvements, but critics say real change has been slow and only happens after public outcry. For many people, living near these refineries, it feels like they are being treated as invisible, as if their lives matter less than the oil being processed. When a company's profits are built next to schools, homes, and parks, the people living there should not have to fight just to breathe clean air. Chevron has spent years promoting its signature fuel additive called Chevron, claiming that it helps clean your engine and boost performance every time you fill up. Their commercials say it breaks down buildup inside your engine, improves mileage, and keeps your car running like new. But critics and some auto experts say the marketing behind Chevron may be more hype than help. While it is true that Chevron contains detergents designed to clean fuel systems, studies have shown that the benefits are often minimal and not very different from what you would get with other major gas brands. In fact, the Environmental Protection Agency already requires all gasoline sold in the United States to include a certain level of detergents, which means even lower-priced fuel still contains cleaning agents. Chevron charges a premium for its gas, and many customers believe they are paying extra for something that makes a real difference. But if all fuel already includes additives that protect your engine, how much better is Chevron really? Some drivers say they did not notice any change in performance or fuel economy after switching to Chevron, while others say they only noticed a difference in price. The problem is not that Chevron does nothing, it is that Chevron's marketing may lead people to believe it is a unique and essential product when it might just be a slightly enhanced version of something every station already offers. Consumer advocacy groups have raised concerns that customers are being misled into thinking they need Chevron fuel to protect their car, when in reality, regular top-tier gas from most stations can do the job just as well. When companies exaggerate benefits to boost profits, it becomes hard to know who you can trust at the pump. While Chevron presents itself as a responsible and well-run global energy company, many of its workers tell a very different story. The years, employees have come forward with serious complaints about how they are treated on the job, especially in high-risk environments like oil refineries, offshore rigs, and pipeline operations. Some of the most concerning reports involve safety violations where workers say they were told to ignore hazards or rush through dangerous tasks in order to meet company goals. In several cases, accidents occurred that resulted in injuries, and in the worst situations, even deaths. Investigations by federal safety agencies have led to citations against Chevron for failing to provide proper equipment, not training workers correctly, or ignoring warning signs about unsafe conditions. Beyond the physical risks, employees have also spoken out about being overworked, underpaid, or punished for raising concerns. Some whistleblowers claimed that when they tried to report problems internally, they were shut down or even threatened with losing their jobs. There have been legal battles over unpaid overtime, discriminatory practices, and lack of protection for contract workers, many of whom handle the most dangerous jobs with the least support. These issues are especially troubling in a company that earns billions of dollars every year and promotes itself as a leader in safety and ethics. For the people on the ground keeping operations running, it often feels like they are being treated as disposable. A strong company should not just protect profits and equipment, it should protect its people. When workers are scared to speak up or feel abandoned after an injury, it shows that something is broken in the system. Chevron is one of the largest and most profitable oil companies in the world, earning billions of dollars every year. But when it comes to paying taxes, critics say the company works hard to avoid giving back its fair share. One of the most well-known examples happened in Australia, where Chevron was ordered to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes after a court ruled that it had used an offshore loan scheme to shift profits and reduce its tax bill. The plan worked like this. Chevron created a related company in the United States and loaned itself money at a very high interest rate. Then it deducted those interest payments as expenses in Australia, lowering its taxable income and saving millions. The court said this setup had no real business purpose and was only designed to dodge taxes. Chevron denied wrongdoing but eventually had to pay up. This kind of scheme is not illegal in every case, but it has drawn a lot of attention to how big companies use complex financial tricks to move money into tax havens and avoid supporting the countries where they operate. While everyday people pay taxes on every paycheck, these corporations often use lawyers and accountants to make their money disappear on paper. Critics say that when companies like Chevron avoid taxes, it hurts schools, roads, and public services that rely on that funding. Some lawmakers and watchdog groups are calling for tougher global rules to stop this kind of behavior. Chevron says it follows all local laws, but many people believe that just doing the legal minimum is not the same as doing what is right. In the end, it raises a tough question. How can a company take so much from a country and give back so little? Chevron is not just being criticized by activists, it is being sued by entire cities and countries for its role in climate change. All over the world, governments are taking legal action against major oil companies, and Chevron is one of the main targets. These lawsuits claim that Chevron knew for decades that burning fossil fuels was warming the planet, melting glaciers, raising sea levels, and making weather disasters worse. But instead of warning the public or changing its business, Chevron kept making money while funding campaigns that created doubt about climate science. Internal documents have come out showing that oil companies, including Chevron, were aware of the dangers long before the public ever heard the term climate change. Cities like San Francisco, New York, and Honolulu have filed lawsuits saying Chevron should help pay for the billions of dollars in damage caused by floods, fires, and rising seas. Some island nations are also joining the fight, saying their homes are sinking while companies like Chevron profit. These cases are not just about money, they are about holding powerful companies accountable for hiding the truth and putting the planet at risk. Chevron argues that it cannot be blamed alone and says it is investing in cleaner energy, but many people see that as too little too late. The damage has already been done, and the lawsuits are growing louder. People are starting to see Chevron not just as a gas station brand, but as a symbol of the oil industry's role in a crisis that affects every living thing on Earth. For a company as big as Chevron, you would expect their gas stations to run smoothly and treat customers well, but that is not always the case. In recent years, Chevron has received a growing number of complaints from frustrated customers who say they were overcharged, misled, or even scammed at some of their locations. One of the most common issues involves credit card fraud. Some people have filled up their tanks only to find out later that their card information had been stolen, possibly through skimming devices placed on Chevron pumps. These hidden devices can steal your card data in seconds, and victims often do not notice until unauthorized charges appear on their bank accounts. While skimming can happen at any gas station, critics argue that Chevron has not done enough to warn customers or upgrade equipment to prevent it. On top of that, others have complained about stations charging them twice, applying random service fees, or advertising one price on the sign outside and then charging more at the pump. Some say they tried to get help from Chevron's customer service and were met with long wait times, unhelpful responses, or no reply at all. These problems leave people feeling ignored and ripped off. Customers have even posted videos online showing broken pumps, rude staff, or machines that suddenly stop working after they swipe their card. When this happens, the money is often placed on hold, and it can take days for the charge to disappear. For drivers who rely on every dollar, that kind of delay is more than just annoying, it is stressful. A company that makes billions should be able to fix simple issues, protect its customers, and respond quickly when things go wrong. Chevron likes to talk about clean energy and how it is investing in the future, but behind the scenes, the company has spent millions trying to slow down climate progress. Through aggressive lobbying and political donations, Chevron has worked to block or weaken clean energy laws across the country. Reports have shown that the company has funded campaigns to fight against stricter emissions rules, cleaner fuel, standards, and even programs that would help communities switch to solar or wind power. Chevron says it supports an energy transition, but critics say its real actions tell a different story. The company has lobbied heavily in Washington and in state capitals to protect its oil and gas interests, often teaming up with other fossil fuel giants to influence legislation. One example includes efforts to stop a carbon tax, which would have charged big polluters for their emissions, and use that money to invest in cleaner technologies. Chevron also backed groups that tried to delay electric vehicle incentives and questioned the science behind climate change. Some of these groups have been accused of spreading misinformation to confuse the public and slow down support for environmental reform. While other companies are shifting toward cleaner business models, Chevron appears more focused on holding its ground and protecting its profits. Lawmakers and environmental groups have called this behavior dangerous, saying that we cannot afford to waste time while the planet continues to warm. For many young people who care about the future of the Earth, Chevron's lobbying has become a symbol of how powerful companies can block the change we desperately need. What happens at the pump does not always stay at the pump. If you have had a strange or frustrating moment at Chevron, don't keep it to yourself. Drop your experience in the comments so others know what to watch out for. These stories matter. And if this video gave you a new perspective, hit like, tap subscribe, and stick with us, because this is just the beginning.